So let me introduce Dr. Nichole Pettway. She has lived the kind of story that most people only read about. Formerly incarcerated, in recovery from addiction, she didn't just rebuild her life, she built a career around helping others to do the same. Now, she is the founder of Pettway Coaching and Consulting, deputy director at BOSS, BOSS, and the author of Against All Odds. Her work spans leadership development, trauma-informed training, workforce development, and re-entry consulting. Now, in this room full of decision makers, the person in front of you has sat on the other side of those decisions. And that perspective is rare. So please pay attention and please welcome Dr. Nichole Pettway, everyone. Let's give her a huge round of applause.
All right. Thank you again. I know that we had this conversation, this panel after lunch. So I wonder if you would be so kind as to just stand up just a little bit and just shake it, shake it, shake it. I remember you put your right foot in, you put your right foot out, and you shake it all about just to wake you up just a little bit. You guys can sit down now. Thank you. You know, I always pray before I speak. And the reason why I pray to the God of my understanding is that I asked for there to be a message of hope, for there to be a message of resilience, for there to be a message and not the mess. I'm really blessed to be here. I'm honored to be in the room with such scholars. I'm honored to be among folks who have spent their lives helping others, creating systems, creating pathways for folks to be self-sufficient. I want to share a little story with you. And I think I'm just going to come down. I want to share a story with you about a little girl named Nikki, born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. Very bright, intelligent young child of 6 who smiled and was joyous in everything that she did. And you wouldn't know the horrors that she experienced at nighttime. And the smiles continued, never telling anyone what she was experiencing. And then there was a time where her family split up. Mom moved to California. Mom sent Nikki to live with her sister in Dallas. But now, mind you, I had been experiencing some severe traumatic experiences as a child. And if you're not looking or paying attention, because I smiled all the time, you would not be able to see the hurt and the pain and the discomfort that I lived in every day. I stopped going to school in the 8th grade. I couldn't learn anything with the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I wanted somebody to say, get back into school. I wanted somebody to say, what's wrong with you? How can I help? What happened? Because after a while, there were no more smiles. Because I was feeling a guilt and a shame of something that I had no control over. And I walked with low self-esteem and low self-worth. And I felt like anything and everything that happened to me in my life from that point on that wasn't good was what I deserved. And I was trafficked because I was vulnerable. I looked to people to validate me and to fix me, and I went in all different rooms participating in incomprehensible, demoralizing behaviors. And then came crack cocaine. This is my story. This is my story. And it wasn't long before crack cocaine ruled my life. The getting, the using, the finding ways and means to get more, living on the animalistic level at 16 and 17 and 18 years old. And at the age of 19, I gave birth to my first crack baby. And thank God I had a loving mother that was able to come and get my child. I gave birth to my second child, who was born with multiple birth defects. And I continued on this vicious cycle. Drugs, going to jail. And see, you have to understand that I was in a prison of my own on the street. That my freedom was when they would lock me up, because it was the only thing that would protect me from me. I was comfortable in the institution. I was comfortable in a controlled environment. It was okay to tell me what time to get up and what time to go to sleep and what I was going to eat. It was okay because for me, again, this is all I deserved. Then I got sentenced to 5 years in Chowchilla State Prison in California. And guess what? I was pregnant again. And I can remember hearing the judge say that maybe now you can have a clean baby. You would be able to bring a baby into this world without drugs in your system. And I remember giving birth to my son, and I was back in the institution for count time that evening. You know, and that's how women were treated in prison, where they were stripped naked in front of each other for strip searches. We've changed a lot of that. And I'm telling you this story about hopelessness, about helplessness, about incarceration, about addiction. And now I want to tell you a story that against all odds, I prayed and I asked God if you would just take the desire, take the taste out of my mouth. See, the gift for me was the gift of desperation. My mother had died just before I went to prison. My 2 children went to family, and my family had disowned me, so I knew there was nobody coming to get my son. And I was determined to make a change. And see, I would go to jail and I would get out, you know, and with all the right intentions, right? I had it all planned out. But the minute I got out, I did not have the resources available to me to sustain staying clean. And I remember going to a counselor, and I said, man, I'm about to get out and I'm scared. Like, I need some help. And I was like, I don't know if you understand what it means, the type of humility that it takes to say that I need help and to actually get it. And I said, man, look, I can't hit the streets. Do not let me hit the street unless there's somebody waiting for me, because I don't trust myself. And so I arranged to go into treatment. And you know, I still straddled the fence. I still had that image, you know, that bad, you know, Nikki that walks the yard and, you know what I'm saying, could command a room and all of that old kind of stuff. But there was so much misinformation. And it was an identity that I had to break. And it wasn't easy to do. And so I met this lady named Martha. Now, I tell you, Martha didn't look like me. She didn't have the same drug of choice as me. We didn't have the same upbringing. And she didn't have the same issues that I had, but she talked about a pain that I could understand. She talked about a sense of invisibility that I could relate to, because I had been trying to be invisible for as long as I can remember. And I bought in. I bought into the notion that I could live a different life. And I allowed this lady to love on me until I learned to like myself. Until I learned that the difference between the guilt that I should be accountable for and guilt that didn't belong to me, and shame that didn't belong to me, because I held it and I functioned in it for so long that every bit of my life was just debilitated. And I had never seen the inside of a high school. And I was told that I could go to these GED classes. I had no intention of really believing, or let me say, I didn't believe that I could do it because I couldn't read and write. I had gone to school for so long and nobody noticed that I couldn't read and write. But Martha did. And I was embraced by a community that I owe my life to today. And it takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of accountability, because I caused harm. I was active in my addiction when my mother passed away. And my mother believed that I could walk on the moon. But every time she instilled strength in me, by the nighttime, it was taken away. So when I became accountable, when I became willing, when I became teachable, everything changed for me. I went and I got that GED. And I tell you what, all of the degrees and certifications and that I have on my wall, my GED is my most proud moment, because it showed, I proved to myself that I could do it. Because people can tell you all day long, but I proved it to myself that I could do it. And I wanted to make sure that my children understood the importance of education. And so in leading by example, I caused harm to my children. So when I got my children back, there was this restoration that had to take place. There was these conversations, these uncomfortable conversations. And I used to say, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. Don't worry about me. I got this. So that they could say what it is they needed to say. But I say, you only got one time and one time right now to be able to say it, because after that, I will not eat any more of your guilt pie. And it took work. It took a lot of work on Nikki. It took a lot of work to become Nichole. And it took a lot of work to stand proud in who I am. And because it was so important that this community embraced me, it was so important for me that I needed to pay that forward. I needed to let somebody else know that no matter how far down the spectrum you think you have gone, if you got air in your lungs, you got action to get back. And that every setback is a setup for a major comeback. And I hold on to that. And where I have been able to go with my life today is just absolutely amazing. I wake up every day with an attitude of gratitude that I get to do the things that I get to do today, that I get to work with such amazing people and set that example of leadership. Because see, I have to walk my talk, right? I have to, on the job and off the job. See, because I have staff all over the community, and they just may see me, and I have to make sure that I'm not out of pocket. Come on now. I wanted to understand the disease of addiction and how it manifested itself in my life in every different area, right? I know I got a bad problem with shoes, right? But it's not making my life unmanageable right now, at least not today. But I wanted to understand. I got a certification as a sexual health educator. I got a certification as a domestic violence counselor. And I am a level 4 certified addiction treatment counselor, because I needed to understand what it is that can, any type of drug that could separate a mother's love for her unborn child has got to be a powerful thing. And it's got to be more than just about the actual use, right? Because you understand there's use, there's abuse, and then there's dependence. And there's times when you're using to survive. And I have folks that I work with every single day, man. You know, of course, I work with reentry. I work with our returning citizens. And I work to make sure that I have counselors that are the kind of counselors that I needed when I was in that position. And I teach that trauma-informed care. I teach that motivational interviewing and that self-change talk. And I talk about stages of change. And I talk about moving people from one stage to the next. And that it's a pendulum change. It doesn't happen overnight. See, I have folks that I work with that come to the table with lived experience, but don't necessarily have the education. And then I got folks that come to the table that have the education, but they have no work, they have no life experience, at least not the type of life experience that these participants are coming to with us. Oakland, California, one of the murder capitals in the United States. We deal with people who are affected directly and indirectly by gun violence. I have contracts with Alameda County Probation Department. I have contracts with Sacramento County Probation Department. I train their probation officers to understand the humanistic aspect of the person that's sitting on the other side of that table. Because for so long, all I was W47204 or X25684. And that's all they call you in the penitentiary, is by your number. You spend enough years there and you start to embed that in your mind. So I get the probation officers and parole officers to look at the human being that's on the other side of the table. And I teach them restorative justice so that they pull away from that criminal justice, because people need empathy, right? They need for you to have some sort of empathy for them. But they also need folks who understand the struggle, who understand how difficult it is to get out of your own way and trust the process, right? A lot of them have trusted the process and trusted systems, and they've let them down because systems are not always set up for them to succeed. They give you $200 gate money and they say, we'll see you when you get back. And that has to change. And I have been on different boards with time done. Man, we've done our time. Let us get a job. Let us get housing, right? Going up to the state capitol, passing legislation and laws, ban the box, right? So that your past does not continue to dictate where you can live, where you can work at, right? We've got folks that come out after doing 10, 15 years in the penitentiary, man. They come out with a lot of skills. But if nobody will hire them, they get discouraged and they go back to what's familiar. They go back to those old people, places, and playgrounds. And it doesn't take long before they're a statistic again, if they make it back. Because I got a lot of my friends that didn't make it back. I've had a lot of friends OD. I've had a lot of friends get killed out in the mix. I've had a lot of folks come into recovery and that I've helped. And I've been to a lot of funerals. Because, see, people get clean and they forget, that they haven't been using, and they'll go out and they'll go right back to the same amount that they had been using. We teach harm reduction. We give people Narcan. We give people ways in which they can help each other. And I'm proud to do that. And I'm going to tell you, my staff, man, I have an amazing staff. And I have an amazing staff because I give them the type of training that they need to believe in themselves. We just started a $12 million contract with Alameda County Probation Department, and half of my staff have lived experience. Half of them come to the table with just the trainings that they've received while employed. But I tell them how we show up in this first year is what's going to determine whether or not we get year 2, 3, or 4. You're being watched, and your character has to always be in check, because you can best believe there's somebody that doesn't think that my agency should have gotten a $12 million contract, that somehow or another somebody could do it better. So we stand tall, we stand strong, and we're one band and one sound. And man, it feels really good, like, to have the kind of camaraderie that we have. I have clinicians that work for me, and we are talking about vicarious trauma. We're talking about ways in which we're trauma stewards and how self-care is so important. Self-care is very important, especially when you're grassroots outreach. When you're in the field with participants and taking them to court and taking them, you have to take care of yourself, because you don't know whether or not your issues may come up, right? If you identify as a recovering person, so how do you take care of yourself? Say, hey, you know what? I'm not comfortable in going over there. You might have to get somebody else to take you over there. Boss, I don't feel comfortable doing this, right? So I teach various different agencies across California and across the United States on how to work with our reentry population. How do we help our returning citizens and set them up for success? Set them up to be self-sufficient, and then put them in a position where then they now want to pay it forward. It takes, like I said, it takes a lot of humility to even want to pay it forward when you've had so much stuff done to you in your life. To say you want to be in a helping profession, right? It takes a lot of therapy, a lot of work, step work, you know, and I'm really, really proud. And the one thing, like I told my children, there's nothing that I could do or say that could make up for our lost time. But every single day I got action at doing the next right thing when nobody is looking, that shows them the example of not doing it and not living like that anymore. My children are very proud of me. My grandchildren are very proud of me. You've never seen me in any other capacity than the capacity I'm in right now. And it's a gift. It is a gift to be able to reach out to someone else and pour into them what somebody else freely gave to you. Didn't nobody ask me, see, when I'm in the dope house, I got to have some money or some dope or I gotta go. But these people love me for free. They helped me save my life for free. And the only thing that I had to do was to pass it on to somebody else, to that new person that came in the door and say, hi, my name is Nichole. I'm a recovering addict. How you doing today? Right? If I got one more day clean than you, then I got a little bit more information that you need to hold on to. So come on ahead and hang with me, because we have to change all of our people, places, and playgrounds in order to get to where I'm at today. There's no straddling the fence. So, if you work with that population, or you know somebody that does, work with that population. Again, I am certified in several different curriculums. I have my own curriculum called Building Bridges because I needed somebody to send me a lifeline. I needed somebody to create a bridge for me because I was drowning, and I needed somebody. And so today, now I want to be that somebody. And I got a whole staff that wants to be that somebody, that reaches out and say, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. If I can go back to school, you can go back to school. Right? I remember when I was getting my clinical master's degree, and the Board of Behavioral Services contested my clinical degree because of my record. And you know, I had one lady who said, well, you know, just take the master's in psychology. Same thing. You a damn lie, about $40,000 difference. How about that? Y'all understand what I'm talking about? Come on now. And I fought to get my clinical license as a marriage and family and child therapist, because I set together a packet from the day that I got out of the penitentiary and into the treatment program all the way up to that day of presenting to this judge. And I walked out of there with that clinical license. And I'm telling you, man, I don't know what pushes me, because I have this imposter syndrome that talks to me in my own voice and tells me, still, you ain't shit. You don't belong there. Them people don't want to hear what you had to say. But I did it. And I'm going to share this last little thing. I'm not sure how much time I have. So my disabled daughter, her name is Michelle. Michelle has Sturge-Weber syndrome and cerebral palsy. I had one doctor tell me that I had stopped using too abruptly, and that's why she had the birth defects. And then I had another doctor that told me that there are women who have had children with Sturge-Weber and cerebral palsy who has never even so much as smoked a cigarette. Don't believe the hype. Her grandmother came and got her when she was 9 months old. I tried. But when you trying to stay clean without a foundation, when you trying to, ready to take care of a disabled baby. And see, I didn't even know she was going to be disabled. You would have thought that somehow or another through the pregnancy, they would say, hey, I think there's something wrong with your baby. Her grandmother couldn't take care of her anymore. And I remember going to this Golden Gate Regional meeting, and there was all these psychologists and all these doctors and social workers, and they kept saying, and who are you again? And why are you here? Because her grandmother was her primary care provider for her medical and all that. But I never lost my parental rights to my daughter. I paid child support all the way till she was 21 years old, and I was very active in her life. But in this meeting, the more they ignored me even sitting there or wondering why I was there, the smaller I got. Because again, the imposter syndrome is not my friend. The imposter syndrome said, why are you here as well? Had me questioning myself. 3-hour meeting. And it took me 3 days for me to call her grandmother and say, you know what? When I couldn't, you could. And now that you can't, there should be no other home that Michelle goes to but mine. And she said she had been waiting 33 years to hear that. And today it's been 4 years. I have full custody of my daughter. And you couldn't have told me that the things that are happening in my life today that, you can't see beyond your current circumstances. You can't see what's down the road. But every time I gave up, the consequences were always so heavy that any progress that I made was out the window. Because it takes time to build trust, but only a second to destroy it, right? And I can't tell you how many times before then that I relapsed. I got clean. I relapsed. I got clean. That vicious cycle. But today, I stand as a very, very good mother, as a very proud grandmother of 11 grandchildren. Building Opportunities for Self-Sufficiency, BOSS, is an agency that's been in Oakland, California for more than 50 years. I didn't even apply for the job. The the CEO contacted me and said, I got a job for you. Are you interested? And I said, I'm interested in a conversation. And what I have been able to do at this agency for the last 18 months has been nothing short of a miracle. We have more contracts than we've had in a long, long time. We have a procurement department that is constantly looking for RFPs to respond to. I have a team that's thriving. I have folks that like coming to work. They just say, hey, Doc, how you doing today? And I'm saying, we rolling, right? And I get to do that today. Right? And when you realize and you love what it is that you do every day, you never work a day in your life. And it's the honest to God's truth. If every day I wake up, I am able to pour into another human being so that they do not suffer, then I feel like I've done my job in paying it back. And if I can educate someone how to work with this very delicate, because I'm going to tell you, they all have a story. And like you said, it's not cookie cutter. But listening to the story and helping get to the root of exactly why it is you keep doing what it is you keep doing and keep getting what you keep getting. Right? When you work with people in a way that they start answering their own questions, right? When them open-ended questions, them reflections. So what I hear you saying is, when you have those conversations where people are actually feeling seen and heard, things start to change. When you plant the seed, they're the ones that have to give it the sunshine and the water to grow. I hope that I've said something to someone that you too, I don't know what it is that's holding you back. But remember that you can do anything you set your mind to. If you're in the right rooms, if you have the right people around you, if you have people around you that actually want to see you win. See, the people in my life want to see me win, right? I'm sure I got a hater or two. You know what I'm saying? Everybody got to have one or two, right? But the people I have in my life want to see me win. If nobody told you that they love you today, then get you some new friends, because somebody should be telling you that they love you every day. My name is Dr. Pettway. Thank you.